So one day I was playing Hearts of Iron 4, as I usually do, and then I decided to play as Ukraine in Kaiserreich. And as I was playing Ukraine, I got this cool event about this Finnish guy. So I paused the game and looked at the event, and I was wondering, I've never heard of this guy before. So then I searched him up, and I found out he was actually pretty based. So here's a video about him. So, Kaarlo Edvard Kivekäs, originally named Karl Edvard Backman until 1881. He was born on December 6, 1866 in Valkeala. And from everything I've read about him, there is literally nothing about his childhood, so we're getting straight to 1886, when he started his military education in Hamina Cadet School at the age of 20. After graduating as an artillery officer, Kivekäs got promoted to second lieutenant and was assigned to the Turkestani Cavalry Mountain Artillery Regiment on the 10th of August, 1890. After this, he switched around different artillery regiments in the region and moved around the area. In the middle of 1896, he was made a lieutenant. Now, as a cavalry mountain artillery officer in the Pamir region, his length of service there was supposed to have been much shorter, but things changed. Across the border from Afghanistan, tons of refugees fled the country, and while the corrupt Bukhara government scolded these people, Kivekäs took it upon himself to help the local people against the Bukhari government. Between 1897 to 1899, he was the Pamir area governor. He limited the spread of radical Islamism in the region and supported local religious leaders and fought against drug trade, which all in all is pretty based. Kivekäs was fluent in Shugni, Tajik, Uzbek and Kyrgyz, and was reportedly really understanding of the cultures and traditions in the Pamir area, which led to him helping them out. Also, while in the Pamir region, he adopted a local girl named Olga. Olga later remarked that Kivekäs was a very friendly and warm-hearted person. He also apparently founded the city of Korog on the border with Afghanistan, but there's only one source of this, so I can't confirm this. Kivekäs was then promoted to captain on the 25th of August 1902. After this, he spent more time there in other governing roles, and also as the Pamir Reserve Commander. Finally, on October 13th, 1908, his deployment in Turkestan ended, and he was made a lieutenant colonel just before. He was then promoted to colonel and was transferred to Lithuania as a field artillery regiment commander on August 31st, 1910, where he stayed for 3 years till he was transferred to the Far East as a mountain artillery regiment commander on the 27th of November 1913. When the First World War broke out, Kivekäs was called back to Europe, and in September 1914 he was back and fought against both the Germans and the Austrians that year. He was involved in many battles, and in May of 1915 he received the St. George Sword Award. In December 1915 he was called to Odessa to form the 113th Field Artillery Regiment, which he took command of. He fought in Galicia against the Austrians from June 1916 onwards. Now in September 1916 he was made a general major. In early 1917 Kivekäs was the artillery commander of the 31st Army Corps, but was soon moved to be the commander of the 113th Infantry Division in September. But then, as you know, the Russian Revolution happened later that year. The division was transferred to the Ukrainian government, and so Kivekäs turned to the Ukrainians. Kivekäs was made a Cossack leader in the chaos of the Ukrainian situation, as he had led Cossack troops while in Turkestan. He commanded his division in battles against the Bolsheviks and Germans around the west of the country. Once Kivekäs had been informed of the Finnish Civil War, he resigned from his duty in Ukraine in April 1918, but the German occupiers had stopped him, as they didn't allow him to leave the country at first. Edvard Heltin, a Finnish diplomat in Berlin, managed to convince the Germans to let Kivekäs and 16 other Finns from Kiev leave for Finland in July. Kivekäs arrived in Finland on the 26th of July, but was too late to contribute to the Civil War, as it had already ended. Kivekäs was made General Major for the Finnish army on the 5th of August. At first, Kivekäs was given command of some guard troops, but was soon moved to be the commander of the coastal batteries in October, In February 1919, Kivekäs was the artillery inspector for the Finnish army. While Kivekäs was the inspector, he was granted commander-in-chief of the army on July 18th, as a substitute for Mannerheim, who had to give up his position as he was running for president, after which he was promoted as the coastal defense leader. During the first presidential election of Finland in 1919, there was a crisis in Finland, as the civil guard, the monarchists, and the independence activists supported Mannerheim in the election. A part of the army dreamed of a military dictatorship if the Republican Stolberg was to be elected. Kivekäs saw the political situation as dangerous in Finland, and told the government about the spirit of extortion prevailing in the army, and on the 27th of July 1919 declared a military order for soldiers to not interfere with politics. The text highlighted democracy and patriotism. It also mentioned for the officers to stay in their post and to do their duty, and not to resign in protest, as it would be unpatriotic. Kivekäs made sure that these orders were followed within the army garrisons. Even as Stolberg did win the election, there were officers who plotted for Mannerheim to get into power. But the generals Kivekäs and another Tsarist officer, Oskar Enkel, stayed loyal to the government. However, Kivekäs was discriminated against within the senior officer corps, as they saw these former Russian officers as unpatriotic. Even Mannerheim turned his back on Kivekäs and later didn't want to remember his accomplishments in 1919. Neither did he invite Kivekäs to future events with Mannerheim. Kivekäs now continued his duty as the coastal defense commander till 1925. During his time, he worked on improving coastal fortifications and equipping the Ladoga coastal battery with heavy artillery. As the Finnish army was undergoing modernization, Kivekäs was moved down to lesser worthy tasks, as former Russian officers had begun to be removed from army command as was ordered by the Jaeger officers. After this, he worked a little longer in other army roles till he resigned from his duty as the Helsinki garrison commander. He was made general lieutenant and was the inspector of equipment from 1929 till 1932. Kivekäs modernized both the coastal defense and the artillery. He changed the language used within artillery roles from Swedish to Finnish as a standard, and this has been unchanged since. Together with another artillery general, Vilhelm Nennonen, they were a great pair, as Nennonen was a great mathematician and a good theorist, while Kivekäs had the experience in using artillery on the field. Together they made a new artillery tactic, after which the credits were given to Nennonen, as Kivekäs at this point had been made less popular within the ranks. After a long service, Kivekäs was finally moved down to the reserve in 1932, and in his retirement he lived in Terijoki, from where he had to evacuate due to the outbreak of the Winter War. Kaarlo Edvard Kivekäs died in Hämeenlinna in February 1940. His legacy has been almost completely forgotten within Finland, but outside of Finland, in the Pamir Mountains of Tajikistan, his legacy lives on in the capital city of the region, Korug, where a street is named after him. He was also the highest-ranking Finnish-speaking officer in the Russian army as a general major and a divisional commander. And that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, especially if you watched this till the end, and if possible, like the video and comment down below your thoughts. Until next time.